Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're talking about fantasy football tight end rankings for 2020, specifically tight end ones. These are the only tight ends you need to target in your fantasy football draft, and we're going to tell you about the top 12. Let's start this fantasy football podcast right meow.
Hit that drop. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fantasy Football Upside. I am Justin. I'm going to point at the screen, but that's Kyle. We want to say thank you again for stopping by our Fantasy Football Podcast and YouTube channel. So today we're going to continue our updated 2020 Fantasy Football rankings and go through our top 12 tight ends. So last week we dropped 2 mock drafts. Started with Kyle on Monday, mine on Friday, and then we stacked some updated wide receiver rankings right there in the middle of the week. So definitely check those out in the description below.
Those are changing. COVID, guys, COVID.
Yes.
Those are quickly changing.
Those are quickly changing, and yeah, we're already going to have maybe a slight asterisk on one of these QBs or tight ends today. So, and then maybe we'll have one at the QBs tomorrow as well. So, Kyle, what you got?
You know what? Make sure that you hit that subscribe button and click that bell. We appreciate that when you guys do that. Also, leave a comment down below letting us know if you know where Justin is today, where he's sitting, and we'll give you a shout out in the next episode about that. So make sure that you go ahead and hit that comment. Let's dive in head first into the shallow and get this thing moving.
Let's do it.
All right. So right off the top at number 12 for tight ends. By the way, we're going 12 down to 1 today on tight ends. These are the top 12. You're only drafting one of these guys, so don't take more than that. And at 12 we have Jack Doyle with the Colts. I think we're both pretty high on this. It falls primarily back to the fact that we think that this offense is a different offense in a lot of ways. Jack Doyle was drafted pretty highly. I want to say it was last year, right? He was drafted pretty well last year in fantasy football, but then Eric Ebron had like 6 weeks with 2 touchdowns or something in a row, and it was just like, well, I guess that was a whiff. So that kind of stunk. But, it boils down to 2 words: Philip Rivers. That's what it boils down to. That dude is just going to throw the ball to like TY, Jack Doyle, and then he's going to check down to the running backs. That's it, right? I mean, no, I'm being facetious. There's going to be more to that offense than that, but it boils down to Jack Doyle's value is strictly tied to Philip Rivers. So, what do you got for me on him?
And that's exactly true. I mean, it's Philip Rivers throwing to the tight end in the end zone. We've already talked about that many times. He loves to do that. So, there's another tight end there, Trey Burton. They signed him off the heap of Chicago, but he just can't stay healthy. They keep talking him up here in the offseason. So I'm a Colts fan, so I kind of keep track of some of those things. But that could all be just fluff anyways to try to get his spirits up because he was really washed out in Chicago.
Well, he almost lost his leg. So
it's just one of those things where Jack Doyle is one of those consummate pros. He's always going to run the right routes. He may not be flashy, but he'll come down with the ball.
He's also going to be on the field a lot. He's going to be on the field because he's really good in the running game.
He's on the field because of how good his blocking is. So if they ever check out of it, he could be one of those hot reads right there. So, I dropped him down just a little bit in my rankings, but he still landed right here at number 12 for us as a composite. So up next, we have number 11, Noah Fant, Denver Broncos. And this is one of those ones where we're always just looking for those second-year tight ends, second-year wide receivers. It's really hard for a rookie to really make an impact at tight end. And even with that, Noah Fant did make a decent little impact. I mean, he was a first-round pick for a reason because he's uber athletic. And this is just another year. Drew Lock didn't start playing until towards the end of the season, and they did find a nice little connection together, and I think that was just going to continue. Now, there's a lot more weapons now that they've added to that offense, but I think that kind of helps out right there in the middle of the field if you can kind of open up a few things, because I can just see Noah Fant running seam routes day after day after day because of how athletic he is. So I think we're really hoping for the upside on this pick. The floor may be a little lower than maybe some other ones kind of thing because there's just a lot more upside to him. What do you think?
I think that's fantastic, right? I think that Fant is going to do awesome this year. I think that the offense is an offense that isn't going to throw deep enough, right?
Right.
We're kind of low on Sutton.
Yep.
One of the big reasons for me being a little higher on Fant is, one, I think he's like Kittle Jr. kind of. I think you could see this come to a head here. This dude is
Oh, he's what? Kittle Jr.?
yeah,
Oh,
he's very athletic.
I found my new man crush. Look out.
Yeah. But not only that, like, you have to remember, like, the reason that last year he was struggling beyond just being a rookie in the first half was because there was somebody else on that team who was running all the seam routes, and he got traded to the 49ers, and that was Emmanuel Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
When he was gone, it was Fant. It was Fant
Yeah.
down the seams constantly, and that's why they felt comfortable trading away Emmanuel Sanders. And yeah, they brought in some wide receivers, but those guys aren't going to have an immediate impact on this team, and they're not going to take away his value.
Right.
He's going into his second year in this. He's shown a capability here. He's broken some plays open before. He's shown the ability to get down the field. So I like Fant. I think that we've got him in the right spot here. I think he's going to be a little bit of a sleeper. He might have been, I think, one of our tight end sleepers, if I recall, or something.
He may have been. I mean, this is tight end you right here when it comes to where him, Hawkinson, and you already mentioned my boy Kittle. So yeah.
Yep. All right, so let's move on here. We have at 10, we have Blake Jarwin of the Dallas Cowboys, in case you need to know where he's playing, because that may not be a name you've heard unless you've been listening to us for a little while, and then you probably have.
Yep.
And look, Jarwin is in line for a phenomenal year. Like, people are sleeping on this dude. It's insane. He's not getting drafted in a lot of places. And he did go in the league that we're in, the experts league that we're in.
Yeah.
He just recently went off the board in like round somewhere around 10, 11 or something.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think it was 11, 10, 11, 12 right around there. Yeah.
Yeah. I would have liked to have been able to sneak him away, but we ended up getting somebody else, even though we had Jarwin in our pick options.
Yep.
But anyway, he just got an extension. They just let Witten go. There's so many vacated targets. But this guy already had a ton of targets. He already had a good amount of targets in the end zone, and he's extremely athletic as well. He catches the ball well. He blocks really well. He's going to be on the field a good deal. And an athletic tight end in a Mike McCarthy offense has potential, really does have a lot of potential. And they might like putting him out there instead of that third wide receiver at times. So, what do you got for me on Jarwin?
Yeah, you already mentioned they signed him to a 3-year, like $27 million contract for someone that not everybody really knows about, and that just tells you how much they really like him. I kind of hearken him back to Jack Doyle whenever he got his first extension. He wasn't really well known, and then they gave him a 3-year, like $18 million contract, and then they're like, oh, maybe we should start paying attention to him. So we're kind of getting ahead of the ball here and saying Blake Jarwin's a guy that you can target towards the end of the drafts at tight end and still be really good, because you mentioned it, vacated targets. They're number 2 in vacated targets.
But not only that, he was still serviceable. Last year, he was still serviceable. Like, he still put up totals last year in games.
Yeah, he did put up some totals. So he did put up some totals, and I just do think it's going to be even more this year, because it's going to be a high-powered offense. And once again, rookie wide receivers, no matter how talented they are, and it's one of those things where Mike McCarthy, he kind of makes their wide receivers season a little bit, kind of like Devontae Adams, Jordy Nelson. So this could be the same thing. We'll see. Okay, up next, number 9, we have Austin Hooper of the Cleveland Browns. This is one of those ones that maybe that changes just a little bit because of Jarvis Landry's on the PUP list. They just put him on there. Landry had an offseason hip surgery, and he's not quite ready yet, but I mean, that's a lot of times a lot of players get put on that PUP list before training camp starts. So
they put him on, like, it was like active PUP or something like that. So he's still technically active. And the question I think for them was, is he coming in healthy? And I think that he came in a little bit less than healthy of what they wanted. But that's because he didn't have an offseason program.
Yeah. But when it comes to Austin Hooper, I think he's the highest paid tight end now in the league.
I think so.
And I think they're going to want to use that.
Yeah.
The only thing is there's a lot of mouths to feed. And it's also one of those things where I feel like Baker Mayfield likes to target certain players or, so OBJ came over in a trade. and he busted that first year.
Yeah.
First year with a new team, and I'm wondering if that's kind of the same kind of thing with Austin Hooper and Baker Mayfield. They're not going to have that much time to prepare and to play together before the season starts. So that's why I think some people are a little higher on Austin Hooper than we are. So we got him at 9 right now.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't know. I think that playing tight end is like being a bass player in a band. It's the same wherever you go. Like it really is. And so I think that the offense is not going to be too dissimilar from what he was doing in Atlanta. So I think that he'll be able to incorporate himself into the offense quickly. The issue is going to be, again, just like you said, there's too many mouths to feed. Down in Atlanta, he was one of 3 guys who really were getting the targets. Sanu was nothing, and Devonta Freeman wasn't getting any pass work or anything like that. So nothing to compete with him.
You're getting 5 or 6 guys.
Yeah, Hooper. Well, I mean, he's not even the only tight end that's worth targeting on that team.
Njoku.
Right? And Njoku is there too.
Yeah.
And another thing is that down in Atlanta, Hooper got a lot of end zone targets. I don't know if he's going to get those end zone targets here, but what I do feel comfortable saying is that he's going to get a lot of targets in general. I think that this offense is going to try to throw more than it did last year, and it's going to be more effective. I think it's just going to be an all-around better offense. The issue is it's Baker Mayfield. Like it boils down to whether or not Baker Mayfield makes that jump into the echelon of, he deserves to be a starter, or he falls back to the point where they're like, we're not going to extend you. We're not going to take your option. We're just going to let you ride out, and we're going to aim for Trevor Lawrence. I don't know. All right. So who do we have here at number 8? We've got Hunter Henry with the Chargers. It's funny that I'm only talking about Hunter Henry. I've never been a huge Hunter Henry fan, but I do think he's a solid tight end. He's a guy who you can rely on, and he definitely has some big blow-up games. I think he's more consistent than a lot of the guys we've talked about, at least. I think that right now Jarwin has the potential to jump him, and maybe Noah Fant. I don't know. But Hunter Henry is definitely a very solid tight end. And I think that we're both betting on him taking a little bit of a leap this year because you have quarterbacks who are trying to incorporate themselves into an offense that they don't know. This is their first year. You've got a rookie and you've got an extreme veteran, right? Although he's only like 32 or something, Tyrod. But they're both not going to throw the ball deep down the field. They're going to be going for the, oh, crap, that one's not open. My next read is either the running back or the tight end. Like that, they're not going to cycle through 3 wide receivers. That's why you shouldn't touch anybody in this offense who's a wide receiver other than Keenan Allen, and even then, caution.
Wide receiver 3.
Yeah. So I like him. I would say there's a bit of like a bit of word of caution there. You got to be concerned about the quarterback situation. But yeah. What do you got?
I mean, it's the same thing. He is very talented when he's on the field. He's very productive when he's on the field. It's just, when is he? So he's just another one of those tight ends that's always injured, and he's had a lot of history with injuries. And but they did franchise tag him. I mean, he's making buku bucks for a tight end right now because they did franchise and tag him because he's still young. And he's a big target, kind of like you just talked about with Justin Herbert, Tyrod Taylor. They're probably going to look for a guy that's 6'5" in that end zone. I mean, why the heck not?
Yeah.
So, and he's been known to be able to catch touchdowns. It's just, okay, is that Phillip Rivers or is that Hunter Henry? We've already talked about Phillip Rivers and tight ends. So, it's one of those things where, man, once you get past those first 3 that we're going to be talking about whenever it comes to 1 through 3, there's just a lot of variables.
It's what sort of question marks are you most comfortable with? Is what it boils down to. So that's why we're throwing out cautions and concerns and thoughts about a lot of these guys. Is like, how are you going to evaluate the differences between the guys? And it boils down to, what do you feel comfortable with? Yep. Like, what are you comfortable not knowing?
Yep. And with that, when it comes to somewhat unknown, or you know what I mean? Like, we're hoping
completely
somewhat unknown. It's number 7, and we have Hayden Hurst,
what number?
Falcons. I mean, he was a first-round pick in the real draft. It's just,
what one is this?
Number 7.
7 miles an hour.
Thank you for sliding that in, Kyle.
Oh yeah.
But we're definitely counting on the fact that the Falcons can pump out some tight ends as well in fantasy, and that's what Austin Hooper just did. And they traded a second-round pick to get Hayden Hurst, and he was a first-round pedigree. He's talented. He can do it all. It's just he was stuck behind Mark Andrews. Hayden Hurst got hurt. Mark Andrews didn't. Mark Andrews got tight end number 1 and never let go of it.
Yeah.
And that's why, I mean, the Ravens, hey, if we can still get a second-round pick out of him, let's just go ahead and do it because we're going to have to start paying these other people here soon. So, and we're looking at Atlanta Falcons as the number 1 vacated target team right now. So that's why we're really high on Hayden Hurst because we're trying to jump on the bandwagon now because we just think he can really perform on this team.
Yeah. I mean, he's going off the board at like tight end 13 or something, I want to say.
Yeah.
And the noise has gathered a little bit on him, but it kind of slowed up in the last few weeks. It's weird. But look, you were mentioning that, he lost out to Mark Andrews and this or that. Let's not forget the fact that the Falcons felt comfortable letting Hooper walk when they had this guy in the fold. Like they knew what they were already doing. So they're pretty high on him, and he has no competition for targets as a tight end on that team. A lot of tight ends, like that's what you're really looking for is in the end, you know that any tight end target other than maybe 2% is going to go to that guy.
Yeah.
So I think that's a phenomenal option with Hayden Hurst.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, we're both really high on Hayden Hurst, but I think a lot of people are starting to get there.
Right.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on to number 6. We've got Evan Engram with the New York Football Giants, as they like to call themselves, just in case you're confused, by the New York Giants, who are no longer New York Giants in baseball in New York, right? So Evan Engram is a guy who, if he can stay healthy, he's going to put together a real season. And that's really, again, question mark. What are you comfortable with? And with Evan Engram, are you comfortable with the possibility of getting 6 games? And that's it. And there's 6 games that are sporadic. He doesn't gain any sort of momentum, it feels. But he's not got a lot of competition even among the wide receivers. Like you look at the wide receiver group and
there's questions there.
Slayton's the number 1, we think. He's the number 1. And he's coming into his second year.
Yeah.
Wide receiver 1 in his second year. No, like this QB is going to focus in on a few guys, and Engram has already shown that he can be trusted by Jones. So Jones is already focused on him. The two of them are going to roll together, I think, on this. And so if he can stay healthy, you're looking at a solid tight end.
And when we say stay healthy, I mean, he had 8 games last year. He played in 5 in 2018.
Yeah.
Last time he was healthy, that was his rookie year. And we always say rookie tight ends don't perform. Well, he did actually. He finished 4th.
Yeah, dude did.
And you mentioned that they lack a true number 1 wide receiver on the team. And one little nugget here is he actually averaged the most targets per game on the team. So a tight end led when it comes to targets per game on a team.
Was that like in games that he was available?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was going to say if that was for the season, oh my god,
holy crap!
Was he getting like 50 targets a game?
This is one thing though. He was tied for 6th in red zone targets with 14 last year, and that was across the whole season. 8 games, 14 red zone targets.
We might have to move him up our board.
It's just the health, man. It's just the health, dude.
Yeah,
that's the only thing you just don't know. So if he falls, go ahead and grab him.
Yeah.
But number 5 is Darren Waller with almost said Oakland. Holy crap. Yeah. Las Vegas Raiders. That's not going to be the first time. Don't be that guy.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the Raiders, go ahead and hit it.
Don't be that guy.
There it was. When it comes to Darren Waller, let's just go ahead and lead the team in targets, yards, catches. Let's just go ahead and do that. And we're hoping he does the same this year. They did finally bring in some more talent. They, with the draft, they brought in Henry Ruggs, Brian Edwards, and then Lynn Bowden. So they added some weapons, but those are all rookies. And
how many of them play tight end?
No, none of them do.
0.
And then the wide receiver core, past Henry Ruggs is not really murderer's row. It's Hunter Renfrow and Tyrell Williams. So there's a reason why this guy led his team in all those categories, and that's because Derek Carr locked in on him because he is a big wide receiver playing tight end. Let's just be honest. Yeah. And we think he's going to do very similar to what he did last year on a hopefully better offense.
Yeah, I mean, he had a breakout game in like, I don't know, week 11 or something like that. Yeah. And then after that, he was solid. I mean, before that, he was doing okay. He wasn't like phenomenal or anything. But then he had that breakout. I think he got his extension right around the same time as that breakout. Or it was like that week or something. And since then, I mean, he was following that. He was awesome.
Yeah.
And he has real potential to show up in the top 3 this year, I think. It really kind of depends on how the schedule shakes out, health of the QB, whether, COVID hits them, that sort of stuff, right? Yeah. All the X factors. There's a lot fewer knocks on him or question marks to be concerned with, just because there aren't a lot of passing options on that team. There really are not. And this is an offense that I think it was only 15% of the passes went to running backs. We talk about Josh Jacobs potentially getting more involved, but they renewed, or they extended a contract or brought a new contract up with their third running back, who's their pass catching back.
Jalen Richard is back. Yeah.
And so they are planning to throw to the running backs still, but that's not the premier option. That's not the best option for them. If they want those short yardage, hard yards to get, and in the passing game, they're not going to the running back. They're going to the tight end. And why wouldn't you? You have Darren Waller.
Yep.
So, all right, let's move on here to number 4. We have Zach Ertz with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
Ertz is a beast. Like, I want to say, like, over the last 5 years, it's only like him and Kelce or something that have been just destroying the league as far as tight end goes. I think he led. I don't have the stats up in front of me. I think he led the team in targets last year. And
well, that would make sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they had tackling dummies they were fielding on the team at certain points. I mean, they had guys that were literally starting for them who were practice squad players to start the year. So I get it. Everybody got hurt who had a W at the beginning of their position, right?
Yeah.
But Zach Ertz is year over year just a solid player. He has managed somehow to keep Dallas Goedert at bay.
Yeah.
And Goddard is an awesome tight end, right?
Yep.
I mean, everybody agrees who's paying attention. Goddard's phenomenal. But then Zach Ertz plays and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, he's better. And that makes sense. That makes a whole lot of sense. And guess who understands that too? The quarterback. The quarterback understands that, and he knows where his bread is buttered. You throw that ball to Ertz, and he's going to make sure that he gets the job done for him, right? Wentz knows that he's going to get in trouble if he's not throwing the ball to Ertz, because Ertz can get it done.
Yep.
So, yeah.
I mean, you mentioned it. He's very consistent. He finished 4th last year, and that's the 4th year in a row that he's at least finished 4th or better. So that is consistency right there. Dallas Goedert is around, but it's still Zach Ertz's tight end room. And, you mentioned as well, I mean, Carson Wentz does look for him on those hard catches and impact and down the line, down the wire in the end of the game. He's looking at Zach Ertz.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't think that's going to change.
Mr. Fourth Quarter.
With that wide receiver room, man.
It's crazy.
You don't know. I mean, you got a rookie in there with Jalen Reagor, but then you have the old guys and Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey, even though I think they're
I think our Sega Whiteside's still there too, who some people are calling a sleeper, right? I mean, coming into
that's a deep sleeper.
But he's only like second year, so he's not a vet or anything like that. But,
yep. Yeah. All right. So up next, we have at number 3 Mark Andrews, the Baltimore Ravens, and I mean, talk about putting together a pretty darn good year. And your brother Dan is just like, they're talking about Mark Andrews because he drafted him towards the very end of our draft last year because he did kind of come out of nowhere, and we're in a keeper league. So, we're going to see his name pop up quite a bit. But, yes, he finished 2nd last year on a team that was very, very, very run heavy.
Yeah.
Very run heavy. But, it's one of those things where whenever you catch 10 touchdowns, that's what happens. So there could be a slight touchdown regression, but with we already talked about him, Hayden Hurst now with the Falcons. There's a little less competition for targets, I think, because the wide receiver room is still little slights. Hollywood Brown, Willie Snead, a couple other guys, and once again, that's not really scaring too many people.
Well, none of those guys are big.
They will have to throw the ball eventually.
Well, none of those guys. Yeah, but none of those guys are big, right?
Right.
And so in the running game, to have variation in your running game, you have to show run and throw, and you're not going to convince anybody with a wide receiver the size of Willie Snead or Hollywood Brown, who's coming in close to the line of scrimmage. You're not going to convince anybody that guy's part of the run game, right? So you don't have that risk of, is he going to block? No, that guy's never going to block. Whereas Mark Andrews, he could legitimately block. He's a really big guy. Well, he's not Will Dissly big, right? But he is big enough. But he's out there all the time. Yeah, said it right. Wait, do we have a horn? Yeah, yeah. But look,
got that in.
Yeah, he's a big enough guy that he's going to participate in the run game, but he's available in the pass. He can spin out on the run game and catch a pass on a play action or a hot route type of situation. These other guys, they're too small. They're too small to handle it that way, and they're just. It's telegraphed a little bit more that it's a pass. The only variation you have is that maybe Lamar Jackson's going to take off. And so as more teams spy on Jackson, I think that these guys on the outsides are going to have even more trouble. Yeah. So I don't know.
All right. Who we got next?
All right. Going number 2, we have Travis Kelce with the Chiefs. Now I think though that Kelce and Kittle were tied for first with us, weren't they?
Yes, and
we talked about about why we would give one the first spot over the other, and it boils down to, Kelce's a beast, right? And he's been in the top 2.
No, he's the number 1 tight end,
number 1 for like 4 years straight.
5
years. I did. Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
Okay, but the schedule that he's facing this year is the worst schedule in the league based on fantasy points allowed to the tight end last year by the opponents he's facing this year. And that's tough. That's tough to say.
It's
not
something
go
you can ignore.
Well, you're looking at the guy who's clearly tight end 1 in almost anybody's board. And then you're saying, but he's got to face the toughest schedule in the league.
Yep.
Are you comfortable taking the number 1 guy in round 2? Because he's going in frickin' round 2 in the redrafts, right?
Yeah.
Are you comfortable taking that guy knowing that he has the toughest schedule? I don't know that I'm comfortable doing that. I'm not taking him in second round, first of all. I don't care who he is, because tight ends don't score in the top 24 wide receivers when you consider them wide receivers. So why would you take them ahead of a top 24 wide receiver?
Yeah.
But beyond that, the toughest schedule in the league. If anybody can overcome it, it's the Chiefs and Kelce. So,
yeah, it's one of those things where he usually makes his bread and butter and touchdowns and everything, but his touchdowns were down last year compared to the previous year. Granted, the previous year was 10, but last year he
also had a healthy quarterback the year before. So,
so he had 5 last year, but he still finished number 1 tight end, and that just tells you all about the volume that he still gets in yards and everything like that, because you do look at him at the end of the year, like you look at the yards and touchdowns, you're like, damn, that's a wide receiver playing tight end. Well, it's a huge SOB too.
I think last year he was the only one who cracked the top. He was like wide receiver 22 if you classified him as a wide receiver. So,
but he's extremely reliable. He's always in the field. He's always 90+% snaps. So he's always out there, and he is a favorite target of Pat Mahomes. And hey, guess what? That's a pretty high-powered offense for a $500 million man. Yeah. So I almost said billion, even better.
$500 million.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. I got $1 billion in there somewhere. But all right. So number 1 is George, my hero, Kittle of the 49ers.
Velvet!
So, if you've watched any of our stuff, I am a big, big fan of George Kittle. And the NFL is a big fan of George Kittle because I think he was top 10 on the best players that were voted by the players heading into the season. And that was all across all positions. So, he's just one of those guys where you just love to watch play football. And guess what? He's very good at fantasy football as well. So it's just one of those things where he really is the number one option right now for the receiving for the 49ers with Debo banged up with the foot injury. So who knows if he's going to be ready for the beginning of the season. So I could just see some more targets going up for him because that's the only knock I really have for George Kittle is he's too darn good at blocking that they like to – I mean, one, it's a run-heavy team, but they'd like to leave him in even in pass blocking situations if that line needs help. But this line is pretty darn good. I mean, they did just lose Joe Staley, but, hey, let's go ahead and bring in what was the tackle from the Washington football team? I can't even remember his name.
I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
He was the number one offensive tackle as well, number one overall. So, but all right, what do you got on George Kittle?
I think that Kittle is a phenomenal option. He has the easiest
Trent Williams
fantasy schedule.
Trent Williams, offensive tackle.
He has the easiest fantasy football schedule.
He does.
And so not only that, but part of his competition for targets on that team is the wide receivers, right? Because they don't throw deep. They just don't. That team does not want to throw further than 5 yards. It's as though Mason Rudolph is the QB or something, right? Well, it's true.
It's McDreamy, though.
It's funny because it's true. But, Debo's hurt. So the only guy who's really competition for him in this offense is hurt and going to miss probably 2 weeks. I don't know, maybe a little bit more. Yeah. Another guy that was competition is gone. That's Emmanuel Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he just doesn't have any competition.
Like questions at wide receiver, Brandon Ayuk, a rookie. Dante Pettis fell off the face of the earth his second year. So, there's just a lot of uncertainty behind him.
Yeah, so I think that you're fine. Yeah, you can draft him with confidence. I'm not doing it in the second round.
No.
But he's going in the second, early third. That's a dumb pick. And, just don't do that.
Don't be that guy.
You're making a mistake when you spend that amount of capital. You really are. So, all right. So that is the end of tight ends for us on our updated midsummer update here. And we'll probably have to update again once we get right to the start of the season, right up into the first week of September. We'll probably try to crank out all of our rankings again so that you have a better idea of what to focus on. Tight ends are not going to change a whole lot. Maybe it'll shake out a little bit in the second half of our rankings.
Once
or whatever,
we get into training camp a little bit more, it might shake out a little bit. But I think we're feeling pretty good about our rankings right now. Yeah,
with that, I think so. Obviously, with COVID, anything can change, guys.
Anything can happen.
So make sure you hit that subscribe button and click that bell so you're notified every time we upload the best fantasy football podcast. Comment where Justin is. Throw that down in the comment down there, and we will try to give you a shout out next episode or the one after that. We'd like to hear from you guys, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for being a fan of the Upside.
See you guys.
Bye.